It started with a sound, not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet click of a door across the hall at exactly 3 in the morning, the kind of sound most people would never notice. But when you live alone, when your nights are silent enough to hear pipes breathing inside the walls, tiny sounds become impossible to ignore. At first it felt like nothing, a neighbor leaving late, maybe work, maybe insomnia, maybe a habit. But then it happened again, and again, every single night, 3 a.m. Exactly, no mistakes, no delays, always the same pattern. The door opened, soft footsteps crossed the hallway, and a few seconds later, I'd hear the front building door shut, then silence. And what made it strange wasn't that he left, it was how precise it was, like a ritual, like something scheduled, something important. I told myself to forget it. People have lives, strange schedules, strange routines, but curiosity has a way of growing in the dark, especially when it keeps waking you up. Then one night, I looked through the peephole, and what I saw made everything worse. He wasn't dressed for work, no uniform, no bag, just dark clothes, a hood, gloves, looking both ways before stepping out like he didn't want to be seen. That was the moment everything changed, because once you notice something strange, you can't unsee it. And when you start asking questions, sometimes you find answers you were never supposed to know. I followed him one night, just once, I told myself, just to understand, just to end the mystery. But what I found at the end of that street made me wish I had stayed inside. I've always believed neighbors are like background characters in life. You see them, nod at them, maybe exchange a few polite words, but you never really know who they are. We all live separated by walls, pretending privacy means safety. My building was old, quiet, and forgettable. 4 floors, thin walls, dim yellow lights in the hallway that flickered every other night. The kind of place where everyone minded their own business. That's how I liked it. I moved there after wanting a fresh start. New apartment, new routines, no noise, no complications. At least that's what I thought. Across from me lived a man named Daniel, or at least that's the name on his mailbox. Mid-40s maybe, thin, pale, quiet, too quiet. I had seen him a few times during the day, usually carrying groceries or checking his mail. He never smiled, never stayed to talk, just quick eye contact and gone. At first he seemed normal, maybe introverted, maybe tired, but after the 3rd week of hearing that same door click at 3 in the morning, every night without fail, I started noticing more things, like how he never seemed tired during the day, how his shoes always looked muddy, how sometimes his hands had scratches, small ones, fresh ones. I tried making sense of it, maybe night hikes, maybe a weird job, but why hide it? Why leave like that? Quiet, careful, almost nervous. That's when I started paying attention, not because I wanted drama, but because something felt wrong. And if you've ever had that feeling, the one that sits in your stomach and whispers that something isn't right, you know it's hard to ignore. Before this story goes any further, I want to know something. What city are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I always read them, and it's wild seeing how far these stories travel. And if mysteries like this keep you hooked, subscribe to the channel, because trust me, this story only gets stranger from here. The next few nights, I started staying awake, not intentionally at first, but once your mind locks onto a pattern, sleep becomes impossible. At 2:55, I'd sit in darkness, lights off, listening. At 3 sharp, click, every single time. Sometimes I'd peek through the peephole. Same clothes, same hood, same cautious glance down the hallway, like he was checking if anyone was watching. One night I opened my door a crack after he left and looked down the stairwell. Nothing, just silence. But there was something else. A smell, earth, wet dirt, like fresh rain, even though it hadn't rained in days. The next morning I checked the hallway floor. Tiny spots of mud, leading from his door to the stairs. That's when curiosity turned into obsession. I started building theories. Was he burying something? Meeting someone? Hiding something? It sounds insane now, but at the time, every possibility felt real. I even tried casually talking to him once. Just normal neighbor stuff. Asked if he worked nights. He paused too long before answering. Smiled, but it looked forced. Said, something like that, then walked away. That answer stayed with me. Something like that. What does that even mean? That night, I made a decision. If he left again, I'd follow him, not confront him, not speak to him, Just follow from a distance, see where he went. End the mystery. That was the plan. Simple. Safe. At least that's what I believed. At 2:58, my heart was pounding harder than it should have been. It felt ridiculous. Following your neighbor at 3 in the morning because he had a strange routine. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't stop thinking about it until I knew the truth. Then the click came. Right on time. I waited 5 seconds after he left. Opened my door, barefoot at first, then rushed back for shoes. I kept distance as he walked down the empty street. The neighborhood at that hour felt different. Wrong somehow. Streetlights buzzing. Empty roads. Wind pushing trash against the sidewalk. Daniel walked fast, not looking at his phone, not distracted, focused, like he knew exactly where he was going. I stayed half a block behind him, my chest tight, trying not to make noise. He turned left into an older part of town, where abandoned houses sat behind overgrown fences. That surprised me. Nobody went there. It was mostly empty properties waiting to be demolished. But Daniel walked straight toward them. Then he stopped in front of one house. A house I'd never noticed before. Dark, broken windows, front yard dead and overgrown. He looked around. My heart stopped. I hid behind a tree. After a few seconds, he stepped inside through the side gate. No hesitation. Like he belonged there. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. No movement. No lights. Nothing. Every part of me wanted to leave, but curiosity is stronger than fear when you're close to the answer. I crossed the street slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The gate creaked when I touched it. I froze. Waited. No sound inside. The yard smelled like wet wood and decay. I moved toward the side of the house and found something strange. Fresh footprints in the mud. Not just Daniel's. Multiple sets. Different sizes. Some smaller. Some larger. That made no sense. Was he meeting people here? At 3 in the morning? I reached the back window. It was cracked open just enough to hear voices. Low. Whispering. I leaned closer. Couldn't make out words. Just murmurs. Then laughter. Quiet, uncomfortable laughter. My skin turned cold. There were other people inside. I should have left right there, called someone, gone home. But I didn't. I looked through the crack, and what I saw confused me more than anything. A circle of people sitting around a table, candles lit, papers spread out, maps, old photographs. Daniel was there speaking softly, pointing at something on the table. It looked less like a crime scene and more like a meeting. But what kind of meeting happens in an abandoned house at 3 in the morning? Then someone turned toward the window. I dropped instantly. My breathing stopped. Footsteps inside. Slow. Approaching the window. The footsteps stopped right on the other side of the glass. I stayed perfectly still, face pressed into the cold dirt below the window. I could hear breathing. Someone was there, listening, waiting. After what felt like forever, the footsteps moved away. I didn't move for another minute. Then I ran, fast, faster than I had in years. Back home, locked the door, checked every window. My hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I barely slept. The next morning, I told myself I was done. Mystery solved enough. Weird group meeting. Strange, but not my business. But the image stayed in my mind. The maps, the photographs, the way they looked serious, focused, like planning something. That afternoon, I noticed Daniel in the hallway. Same calm expression. But when he looked at me, it felt different. Like he knew I had been there. He smiled. Just once. Small. Then said, "Couldn't sleep last night?" My blood froze. I forced a laugh. Said no. He nodded slowly and walked away. That was impossible. How did he know? Had he seen me? Had someone else seen me? That night I pushed a chair under my door. For 2 nights Daniel didn't leave. No click. No footsteps. Nothing. The silence was worse than the pattern. It felt like waiting for something. On the 3rd night, 3 a.m., the click returned. But this time, there were 2 sets of footsteps. Not one. I checked the peephole. Daniel and someone else. A woman. Older. Carrying a box. They left together. That changed everything again. This wasn't random. It was organized. And I needed answers. The next day, while Daniel was gone, I checked the shared basement mail area. I know it sounds invasive, but by then, I felt involved. On the floor near his storage unit was dirt, same dark soil, and something else. A photograph, old black and white, a house, that same abandoned house. But in the photo, it looked new, lived in. On the back, written by hand, "The first meeting, 1987. My stomach dropped. First meeting? What meetings? Who were these people? And how long had this been happening? That night, I made the worst decision of my life. I went back to the house before Daniel left. I wanted to get inside first, find answers. I slipped through the broken back door and used my phone flashlight. Dust everywhere, rotting walls. But in the center room, there were chairs arranged in a circle, old newspapers stacked in corners, boxes filled with files, hundreds of photographs pinned to walls, people, houses, streets, names written under some of them, my neighborhood, my building, my apartment number. That's when fear became real. They weren't just meeting here, they were watching people, studying them, including me. Then I heard the front door open. I killed the flashlight instantly and hid behind a collapsed wall. Voices entered. Daniel's voice. Others too. 5 or 6 people. They sat in the room, only feet away from me, talking about patterns and movements and the next observation. I couldn't understand all of it, but then I heard my apartment number spoken clearly, followed by my name. My entire body went cold. They knew me. They were watching me too. One voice said, "He's curious. That makes him useful." Another said, "Or dangerous." Daniel stayed quiet for a long moment before saying, "He'll decide soon." Decide what? My legs felt weak. I wanted to run, but one wrong sound and they'd know. Then something crashed upstairs. Loud. Everyone froze. So did I. Someone whispered, "Who's up there?" Footsteps moved toward the stairs, but I was downstairs, which meant someone else was in the house too. Someone they weren't expecting. The group panicked. Flashlights turned on. Daniel shouted for everyone to spread out. In the confusion, I slipped out through the back door and ran again. But this time I didn't go home. I went straight to my car and drove until sunrise. The next day, I came back with the police. I explained everything. The house, the meetings, the photos, the names. But when we entered, it was empty. Completely empty. No chairs, no files, no photos, nothing. Just dust and broken walls. Like no one had been there in years. The officer looked at me like I was wasting his time. I couldn't explain it. I knew what I saw, but there was no proof. When I got back to my apartment, Daniel's door was open. Empty. Moved out. No furniture. No boxes. Nothing. Like he had never lived there. A week later, I found an envelope under my door. No stamp. No address. Just my name. Inside was a single photograph. Me. Standing outside that abandoned house the first night I followed him. Taken from behind. And on the back, 6 words written in black ink. Curiosity always opens the first door. I moved out 2 days later. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. Last month, in a different city, in a different apartment, at exactly 3 in the morning, I heard it again. Click. A door opening. Soft footsteps in the hallway. And when I looked through the peephole, I saw someone wearing the same dark hood, standing still, looking directly at my door. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the Curious Neighbor's Diary for more true mystery-style stories that make you question how well you really know the people living next to you. And tell me in the comments, if your neighbor left every night at 3 in the morning, would you follow them? Or pretend you never noticed?